If you're a regular listener to the Physio Foundation's podcast, you know what the podcast is all about. You hear me saying this every time. It's a discussion about the knowledge and skills that provide the foundation of expert clinical practice. So as part of this conversation, we have experts who are well known in the profession. The last episode was Dr. Tanya Pizzari, and we talked about shoulder assessment and management. That was a great episode. And we also have a new graduate series that focuses on those first 5 years after graduation. So today's episode is part of the new graduate series. I'm talking to Monash graduate Kristen Witt, who we'll call Krissy from now on. So Krissy is a physiotherapist, nutritionist, and clinical Pilates instructor, part of our class of 2022 at Monash. And Krissy founded and runs Witt Wellness, a company and a practice in Parramatta, New South Wales, Australia, and is an active member of our professional association and Monash alumni network. And now Krissy and I have been having discussions on LinkedIn about matters related to what it's like graduating and challenges that we all face. And we're thinking about recording an episode for that class of 2022 who are going through similar challenges. But of course, it's also for everyone listening. You're going to find this useful if you're a student, if you're a new graduate who's planning ahead beyond 5 years and wants to get through those difficult initial 5 years of practice. And of course, if you're mentoring people who are in that category as well, there'll be really good information here, mainly from Krissy, but hopefully some of it from me. So we're going to talk about contributions to burnout, which is a real thing, and balancing being evidence-based with the realities of clinical practice and the KPIs and everything else that you need, particularly in private practice. And the big one, overall enjoyment and purpose and why we're doing this, strategies for staying in the game. Attrition from the health professions is a massive problem. You can read about that widely. It's been talked about a lot. And I firmly believe that having conversations like this is a part of us all understanding the challenges, getting better, working together, supporting each other. So who better to talk about this than you, Krissy? Welcome to Physio Foundations.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. We've been talking, we've been planning this episode for some time, and I've been really looking forward to it. So we were talking before we pressed record about your background. So you graduated, then you did a nutrition qualification.
Yes.
And some clinical Pilates qualifications, and now you've started your practice. How did that all happen?
Yeah, so I was in Melbourne studying, obviously, that's where I grew up. And then just about to graduate, and my partner's like, hey, by the way, I got a job in Sydney, so we have to move interstate. And I was like, right, no worries. So then I moved up to Sydney, and I got my first gig at a practice up here, which was quite a big sort of sports medicine clinic up in Sydney. And I started as a new grad there. And they sort of have the model, once you've been there for a little while, you move into a contractor role, which essentially means you set up your own business. And then it sort of weighs up. You're not on a set salary. You sort of get incentivized. The more people you see, the more you earn money. So it's sort of a win-win situation if you keep your books busy. Yeah, that's how I set it up. But then once I set it up, I was like, hey, I actually want to grow this and make this my own thing. And I got really passionate about it. So I eventually, after a little while, I left that clinic, and I've sort of been pushing that and trying to grow that whilst also being employed at another clinic while I'm in the balance of doing both.
Yeah, it's a big challenge you've taken on. So you've really gone onto the pathway of business ownership and being a clinician or practitioner at the same time, which is really interesting for a lot of people who are thinking about going in that direction as well. We'll talk about challenges, but let's just talk about you're a very passionate practitioner, clinician, and a high-performing student when I knew you at university. So in terms of physio, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What do you love about being a physio? What's good about it?
I'm actually so fortunate because I do love my job. And I think the thing that I love the most is I get to meet so many different people from so many different walks of life. So in some ways, I feel like I learn more from my patients and the people who I work with. And I think it's it's a really big privilege to be able to talk to someone and build rapport and trust and connection with someone when they're dealing with something that might be really challenging for them, like going through an injury, just had surgery, in pain, whatever that may be, and be able to celebrate all the wins along the way with them, but also be there for, and be empathetic towards them when times are a bit challenging. And I don't know, I think I just really love my job, and there's so much variability in it as well. You don't wake up and have the same day every day. It's always different. And that's really awesome.
You don't get bored?
No, gosh, no.
A friend of mine used to tell me boring people get bored. I don't know if that's true or if that's kind, but but there's an element of just variability there that keeps you on your toes and then promotes that lifelong learning. And you think, wow, okay, this is really an interesting career. It's never boring.
Absolutely. And you're always learning, right? Like there's always more and more research coming out that you can look at and, figure out how to apply it, different courses you can go to. World's your oyster with physio, lots of different fields.
Why don't we just do the perennial question here on the podcast, just discuss it about the most important knowledge and skills for physiotherapists, and just not to spring that question on you, that notice too much, but meeting people, building rapport. You mentioned working with them when they're at their, maybe not their worst, but where they're going through a difficult time, when they're vulnerable, and then bringing your interpersonal skills and your personality and your caring nature and helping them. So to summarize that, rapport building, and what would you add to that for skills to be a good physio, that to really work on beyond the books?
Yeah, totally. Rapport building is so important, but I think there's lots of elements that go into that. It's communication. It's like communication's definitely the key. It's all the little things, eye contact, being able to smile at someone.
There we go. Yeah. Let's do the little things. We always say communication, but eye contact.
Yeah.
Not too much, not too little.
Correct. Yeah. It's just genuinely listening. That's probably something else that gets told a lot, but I quite often remember all the little details about, not how much range someone has in lumbar flexion. It's, do they have kids at home? What sport do they enjoy? What's their hobbies? Like all of that makes the person, and it's not the injury. And I think that's the thing, you're dealing with people. And if you can remember that, I think that's so important and such a lucky job to have.
That's so well said. It makes the person. We always talk about person-centered care. We don't want to give it lip service. We want to actually be doing it. Here's a person with their family and their jobs and dreams and everything else, and some sort of an interruption to that, and you have an opportunity to help them. And so good to hear a really positive message like that, because not everything's positive. There's lots of challenges. There are negative messages that circulate about professional practice online. I don't call out negative messages. We're just trying to promote really well-spoken, positive messages like that. So that's really good. Let's do challenges then. So you've got challenges ahead of you as now a business owner, a practitioner, and you've got an alumni network that we've been talking about. Hello to the class of 2022 for Monash Physio. There's lots of classes of 2022 around the world and other years that we can say hello to. If you're around that stage of your career, what challenges do you see people facing and trying to overcome?
It's a lot. And that's why I reached out to you in the first place, right? Yeah. So I was like, can we have some advice? Because, one person messaged in the group chat being like, I actually don't even know if I want to be a physio anymore. And there were certain reasons why that was the case. It's sort of balancing what we learn at uni is, evidence-based or evidence-informed practice, but then I guess fitting into different business models. And I get it. Now that I'm sort of doing my own business things, I really see it from both sides. And I think that's important to add. But it can be really, really challenging to step in as a new grad with sort of the skill set you learn, and then be able to try and treat the person in front of you in the best way you know how, but then having expectations from whether that's mentors, other colleagues, your boss. I know a big one that gets brought up sort of in our cohort is manual therapy. Like manual therapy in private practice, there's patient expectations on it. It was probably used a lot more in sort of earlier generation physios, and now we sort of lean a bit more towards exercise and sort of the balance between that. So it can be really tricky. There's lots of challenges.
Yeah, and we get accused of not teaching you manual therapy at the university. And of course, we do. So you get taught so many different things. It's very broad.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't get taught everything, right? Like physio is such a broad thing. Like there's hospitals, there's neuro, cardio, lots of different elements. But yeah, we definitely do manual therapy. But it's just also learning that's not our only tool that we use. And I think that's probably the difference. Like I've worked with colleagues who practically only do manual therapy. And I've worked with people who just do exercise prescription. So yeah, there's definitely differences, but I know that was a big talking point amongst the class of 2022.
Yeah, and reconciling the strong messages that we get online as well, with the expectations of patients and your training which you're doing and your practice that you continue to do. And it's difficult. I mentioned James Schronberg, and he's been on the podcast before, in our chat before we press record. And he's, on that episode, he provided a practice owner perspective and an really experienced perspective on that debate. And really, it's a bit of a false dichotomy, is it not, of having these are two tools amongst many, the patient education, load management, so many other things that you'll do. You've got patient expectations, you're running a business, and do we have to choose one or the other? Do you have to be a manual therapy physio or an exercise physio? Does it depend more on your skills and what you've developed over time and what you can offer that person and what they want? Is that a more nuanced approach?
Yeah, I definitely think so. For me, I don't treat everyone the same way. So I've got people who I just do exercise with. I've also got people who I know are so good with their exercises at home and will mainly just do manual therapy because that's, placebo is a real thing as well, right? Like depending on what we think manual therapy is doing, but they feel really good afterwards, and that's great. That's a really good outcome. And they're doing their exercise, they're getting stronger, they're developing more mobility. So I don't think that's the wrong way either. So I think it's the same thing. It's coming back to who's the person in front of you and what's actually going to benefit them most. Don't try and, push your own gender or, agenda or bias onto that. And I think you're right. I think people are trying to fall into these camps of I'm manual therapy or I'm, exercise, and it's not one or the other.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you feel really challenged by that and you feel that's a tension in your own career, then I think Krissy's words there are really wise. You'll treat everybody or help everybody in a different way, and you bring a range of skill sets to that. There's some people you will use mainly in education or altering load and workplace stresses or demands approach. So many different things you can offer. What will the person say when they come and see you if you do some manual therapy and you ask them, what did the physiotherapist do? They're going to remember the hands-on stuff. They're not going to think of your interviewing skills and your goal setting, your motivational interviewing, changing their occupational sport-related load, communicating with the doctor. They're probably not going to see all that invisible work, and they're going to remember the massage. They thought they got a massage. You did some Maitland mobilizations, right? And maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
In a way. But there's also communication of what you're doing to them and selling that to them. We're managing the whole person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've summed that up really well. And that's the thing, we shouldn't just be doing manual therapy and exercise. Like you said, there's education, load management, all the other elements that, fit into it. And I think that's really important to add.
Yeah. So, okay, so somebody, we're not going to name them, somebody said they're not sure if they want to be a physio anymore. All right, so it's not Friday, but you can do a Friday confession. You've seen that one on social media. I have thought that myself many times. Many people have. So what happens then? Why did I continue in the career? So let's not talk about me. Have you ever had any doubts like that about the direction you're going in? Someone who loves the profession, who has spoken so well about why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think for me, I got really good advice. He was my first ever mentor, actually. Like once I finished uni, I got given this mentor, and he's great, still in touch with him. he gave me some really good advice because there was a period where I felt not so much that I didn't want to do physio anymore, but I was sort of, I don't know, turning up to work and just not feeling the same passion that I wanted to feel. And his advice to me was, if you start feeling like you're not enjoying work, whether that's you're feeling burnt out, tired, maybe you just don't want to see so many patients that day, he said, take a break, go for a holiday, take the weekend off, have a break, have some time off. He said, if you come back to work, wherever that may be, and you still feel the same way, maybe it's time to explore other avenues. Is it the business you're currently working at? Is that not right? Look at a different physio clinic. But more than that, think about why. Like, why is that the case? Like, what's sort of draining your energy that's not just necessarily seeing patients? And I think that's really, really important. And I stick to that advice so much. And even with my own business, like, I'm like, okay, something's not, if something's not adding up here, it might be, like, I'm not, being smart about how I'm structuring my day, or all this admin. I feel like I could, make that quicker. Like, there's things that you can do that might not be the actual job in terms of patient facing, like admin, notes, communication with doctors, all the other things that, patients don't necessarily see that we do behind the scenes. Sometimes I think that can be more draining than actually seeing the patients in front of you.
Absolutely. Managing your energy, not just in the practice, but in your life in general, is so important. So you touched on some practical strategies there, that there are technologies that help us now with note-taking, with automating communications. And as someone who's been around practicing since, don't repeat this anyone, but before the internet, I highly value these technologies. They're taking away busy work and repetitive work and giving you more space to think and talk to people and do things we're doing now, having an important conversation rather than filling in a spreadsheet, for example. How else can we protect energy if we think broadly about it? So you thought about things outside work that you do, days off, putting it aside, coming back to it. We're talking about it being quite normal to go through these feelings, particularly in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And let's give ourselves a break. It's just challenging, emotionally draining. It requires a lot of empathy, and you're going to get tired and feel like, I can't give anymore.
Yeah.
So how can we unwind and protect our energy?
I think it's really true. I think thinking about, like, even before uni, most people, high achieving students are getting into physio courses. It's hard to get into. You've worked really hard in year 12, then you get into a course, work really hard in the course, and then you get into work. And I think, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, but I tried to almost give too much. Like, I thought when I wasn't at work, I had to be doing more and more. But I think it's taking that, take a step back and be like, okay, work is a big and important part of your life. You want to enjoy it, but keep going to the gym, keep going for runs, look after your own self, spend time with family, all the other things that matter. That I probably that first year, maybe even year and a half, I struggled to do that. I was so I was like, I've worked so hard to do this. This is my career. I just want to focus everything around it. And it became way too much. Like, no wonder I was getting burnt out. Like, it happens. Whereas now I'm probably, to a degree, I'm working more hours, but feel like in some ways I'm doing less, because I'm making sure I'm going to the gym. I'm making sure I, factor in breaks to spend time with family. Like, things like that are really, really important.
And giving yourself permission to stop at the end of the day and not ruminate on and be a perfectionist and think about how you could have done things better or that thing you said. We're all humans. Yeah. If you're showing up and giving it 100% and you care, you won't be perfect, but you'll be pretty good.
That's it. Yeah. And remembering you're not doing it alone. Like, we've sort of mentioned mentors a couple of times, but whether that's at work, through life, like, lean on other people. You don't have to go through, you don't finish university and then have to go through the whole journey yourself. It could be leaning on peers that you went to uni with, and you'll find that a lot of you will deal with the same experiences. You might clash with your mentor at work, like, lean on someone else. Like, that can happen as well. So I think, other colleagues, family, friends, like you said, we're human. Lots of people, even if they're not physios, experience really similar things out in the workforce.
One of the things that gives you energy is often continual learning. So doing courses. And of course, you can overdo that. You've done your clinical Pilates training, you've done additional nutrition training, and that helps you provide a model of care in your practice that's, I guess, a point of difference to others, which is, well, we could talk about that as well. That's really interesting. Professional development, without overdoing it, how does that give you energy, renewed, and also without you doubting everything else that you've learned in the past? It's not about throwing everything you learned out in university. It's about having a foundation of how to learn, how to think, foundational knowledge and skills, and then building on top of that. How have you found getting into the professional development, the weekend courses, everything that you've done?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've done quite a few weekend courses. Like you said, you can definitely overdo it. I try to do 2 a year. I did 3 one year, and same thing, maybe it was too much. Like, you want to be able to have time to actually apply some of these learnings. But I think it's really good because you sort of, when you're actually in the workforce and you're seeing patients and, you know, you're starting to develop your own skill set, then you go to these courses, these weekend courses, professional development, you get to pick things from them and implement them. You don't have to become, models of these people. Like, I went to Peter Malliaris's course, and that was really awesome. I did that last year, and that was so good. But I didn't, become Peter.
Pete owes me $20 for the promotion of his course. There we go. I'll tell him later. Yeah,
and me too. I'll go in that one.
Yeah, you'll get $20 each. So, but that's a good example of someone who's made something that's really evidence-based, but with lots of practical applications, and you get all fired up. Hey, I'm going to try all these approaches in the clinic, but you can do too many courses as well. And what do I do? Which one's right?
And you go back and you're like, oh, everyone's got a tendon problem now. Like, that's not the case either. But I think it's also good because every course I've been to has brought back that, hey, the education's really important, the listening to the person, the thinking about other biopsychosocial factors, like, all play a role. And sort of getting those fundamentals again, just as a refresher, I think are always really, really valuable. We don't, the intrinsic physiology of everything is super interesting, but when you have the patient right in front of you, is that the main focus? But yeah, I love them. I think they do refresh things. It kind of gives you a little burst of energy again to get back into work and apply some new stuff, learn some new stuff. There's always things to learn in physio. And I keep hearing you'll probably agree with this, but you are like that for your whole career. I think I'm always going to be learning.
It's that curiosity.
Yeah.
So to ask questions, and then it's fun. It's really good getting new knowledge and then processing it and then applying it yourself. It freshens things up really well. And it's probably a matter of just enjoying that process. Like you said, not trying to just do everything and apply everything and be like that person who's presenting, but just take it and assimilate it into your practice. It's like having a meal, isn't it? You can have too many meals, but if you're going to have a couple of big meals a year here, 2 big courses, and then that gives you time to process everything and take the things that you need.
Yeah.
And what's going to work for you and your patients. So mentors play a really important role. We always talk about mentoring. Okay, get a mentor. One thing about mentors is sometimes you can plan them and go seek them. Sometimes they just happen. And it's a person who's you least expect as well. Sometimes mentors can be on your level of experience. And as you get going a little bit, sometimes they can be fewer years post-graduation than you, and they've got something to offer you and mentor you, and you can learn from them. Mentors, it's sometimes a conflict is your mentor is also your boss. I mean, so what are some challenges of being in a private practice, busy environment? We've got KPIs, we've got to make money, and it's okay to make money. It is what you need to do. It's your profession. You have to be paid. We often in physiotherapy give people discounts, and maybe they don't give us a discount when it's time to get the plumbing done. This happens, and it can lead to a bit of resent, being honest. So how do you balance out the mentoring and being managed by people? You don't have to have an answer to this. Maybe we just flag this as a challenge as well for people.
Yeah, I think it definitely is a challenge. I've probably been in a unique situation. I've had structured mentors. I've had 4 different mentors. So each year I've been out in practice. I've had a different mentor assigned to me each time.
Oh, great.
And remembering that mentors are people as well. And they're all, great clinicians in themselves. They, gave me lots of little tools to use from a clinical perspective. But in some ways, the mentorship, it was all the other life advice, first year struggling with burnout and trying to know everything and things like that. And then transitioning to, bigger, what do I want my career to look like? How would I even get to that point? I've been in the situation where I've had, and currently do at the clinic I work at, my boss is my mentor, and the challenges around that. I've had that in both clinics I've worked at, and it's interesting. Like I have, good relationship with both bosses at the time, but it is a bit tricky switching from the, particularly, you want a pay rise or something like that, or holidays, and or do I bring that up in mentoring, or is that a separate thing? Like it is a bit challenging sort of navigating that. And I think definitely smaller private practices, if like the boss is, probably got the most experience there, then there is a high chance they will end up being your mentor maybe to start with. And that is challenging. I think that's where you can lean on whether it's other colleagues, I think was really helpful navigating that, and just the appropriate time to ask certain questions, and how do you sort of navigate that setting. And I think I've got more knowledge around it now. But it is really tricky having, the person who's making sure you get paid each week is suddenly also your mentor. It's can be a little bit of an awkward situation to be in sometimes.
But that's why we're discussing it. We're just aware of these challenges. Different mentors, external to where you work, internal to where you work, people who are involved in managing you or not. There's mentors in different fields of practice. If you ever go into research or education, there's just so many different areas in our profession you can go to. Maybe that's something a positive message we could pass to our friends out there listening to this. You can change as well. I think number one, those first 5 years, always challenging. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Krissy. You're challenged by all the things we're discussing, and you've got to learn as you practice and as you protect your reputation and try to look like you know what you're doing, but you also have to be honest and learn and talk about what you don't know.
100%. I remember when I was sitting there in one of our last lectures at Physio, and it was all about, don't put so much pressure on yourself for your first job. Like, it's not going to be your forever job. And in my head, I was like, no, I need the best job. I don't believe that. Like, I thought I was going to go to one clinic and be there forever. And, I was really fortunate, to work at a great clinic, but I've already left there. Like, it's, and now, setting up my own business. Like, it's just, life changes, and try not put so much pressure on yourself.
And in that clinic, you made a really valuable contribution to the culture there, I could only imagine, and helped people.
Yeah.
And and physiotherapy often, because there's diverse areas of practice and lots of opportunities, we do tend to move. We get rewarded in a way that other professions may not from moving. And sometimes you can move too much and make it too much about you. Sometimes it's worth sticking it out in a practice or in a job for a while and seeing if things change. But when you do different areas of practice, you develop broader skills, and they all link together. And the longer you practice for, the more you see that. So that's something to think about for people thinking, well, do I even want to do this? You can do different things and you can change how you do them. You've mentioned mentoring. You can seek mentors inside and outside workplace. Learning, adding new information, not too much, not too little, can freshen things up. And then one of the first things you mentioned was it's just work. Be really good at it. Enjoy it. It's a big part of your life, but it's only that part of your life to look after your health and do other things and have your own identity.
Totally. Yeah.
Summarizing some of your great ideas here. And so why are we doing all of this? Okay, to help the person in front of you is the first answer. And because you've got knowledge and skills that you can help someone walk again or move their back without pain or whatever the goal is. But for your career, why Why are we doing this? Where's all of this going? Like, what's beyond 5 years, do you think? So I'm not asking you, what's your 5-year plan? This is not a job interview. I'm just introducing the topic.
Yeah.
And maybe I can provide some insights here as well.
Yeah, I think, it comes back to what we've sort of spoken about already, that you want a job that hopefully, like a career that you can see doing long term, that provides you fulfillment, has enough variability that it keeps you excited. You want to do something that you're really passionate about. And sometimes I think I probably wish, I'm once again very fortunate that I've sort of landed in that, but I wish I did a bit more, I guess, looking into myself a bit more interpersonally and, learning a bit more about what gets me excited to get up in the morning and, what do I actually want to do? Why is physio important to me? Things like that. I kind of wish I did that a little bit earlier on, because I think it definitely helps in terms of direction and what way you want to go with your life.
I think you've still got time.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Thanks, Luke. But I think it's really handy if you're starting out in your career to think about that, because then it might be like, oh, okay, well, working as part of a big team and having, a really good atmosphere at work, if that's really important, it might be like, okay, maybe work for a bigger clinic or hospital. Whereas if you're like, no, I want a smaller place. I actually don't want work to drain too much of my energy. I want more time. I want weekends to play sport. Like, look at all that stuff. Like, your job is one aspect. And if you can sort of get a job that ticks a little bit more boxes, and it might not be the first job you have, but, down the track, I think that's going to be really important. And being able to adjust that as life changes, like, who knows 5 years out of uni where that can take you. I didn't even think, before I graduated, I was going to move to Sydney, and now I'm here. So, what's another 5 years going to look like for me? I don't know yet, but hopefully I got a business up and running that's hopefully good.
That's kind of why we do this from a career perspective. Yeah. Everything you said there, because it's exciting. You can go anywhere with it. Yeah. And you tend to look back on what you've done, and there's a really nice autobiographical sequence there. And everyone says the same thing that you just said. They said, I had no idea I was going to end up here, because you can't predict that. Yeah. And then when it happens, that's exciting and new, and you can try new things, meet new people, and then apply what you learned into that new environment. You can bring something. You can keep reinventing yourself. So we can think beyond just the broad categories of public and private and the type of physio you want to be. And all those skills eventually all meld together. Well, look, while I'm promoting old episodes, I had Sports Chiro Luke. So Luke Nelson came on for a couple of episodes, a couple of years back. And we were talking about, because he's a chiropractor, I'm physio, and we're both about the same level of years since our first degree. And you do other degrees, but you've got your primary profession. And then we were talking about the way he manages running related injuries. And there was just, the whole thing was about similarities and consensus. It was irrelevant that one of us had a different profession. And I have the same conversations with exercise physiology and sports medicine doctors I had chat to many times in while practicing, but on the podcast as well. So you can go anywhere with it, but really what we're trying to achieve is quite similar. So,
yeah, totally.
If we go back to the dark side again, these are all positive messages for giving hope for those who are feeling a little bit burned out and tired. Let's go back to the dark side and talk about burnout, contributors to burnout, and things that we can perhaps try to sidestep or even just expect. So in those early years, you just graduate. What do we expect in terms of workload compared to clinical placements at uni and passing tests and learning new things? You're out there on your own. What's it like, and how do you avoid burnout?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think in terms of things that you can expect, I mean, I went straight to private practice, and private practice and hospital would have similarities, but some differences. One of my things was hours. I still do. I do 12 or 13-hour days, not every day, but big days. So getting to that on its own without even thinking about filling that up with patients is tricky compared to, sleeping in and attending a 10 o'clock lecture or whatever
Yeah.
it may be. So just the adjustment from student life to full-time work life is an adjustment in itself. Other things would be, I think, yeah, seeing patients in a set time frame. And I remember quite a few, teachers at Monash told us this, that, you're not going to have a whole hour just to get through a subjective or an objective assessment. But that really does happen. You start to, my appointments are half an hour. And if you had told me that at uni, I was like, oh, that's how long it takes me to get my goniometer out and
Right.
measure knee flexion. And that can be quite daunting. But I think in terms of trying to overcome that one in particular is talk to people early and be like, hey, like what I did originally, which was so great, is I had the expectation was half an hour. So I had a half an hour block for a patient and then a half an hour gap. So I had time to sort of catch up if I was running behind while I developed my skills. And similarly, I've had other colleagues who they just permanently, and these aren't people who've been out for 5 years, they've been out for 15, 20 years, and they always have a sort of an added in sort of catch up break in the middle of their day. And it's like it just works for them. It gives them a bit of buffer. If they don't need it, great, they get a bit more time for admin. Patient notes, I think trying to get a really good system for them early on. So whether that's there's heaps of tools out there to try and make that quicker nowadays. Whether that's emails, notes, letters, sending people exercise programs, trying to make that stuff as simple as possible so it doesn't drain time. I was spending way too much time on that early on, and that can burn you out. Other than that, I think probably the biggest thing that I haven't mentioned is you're learning the whole time still. You don't go out of uni, you learn a lot at uni and it sets you up well, but you go out into the practice and you learn a lot more when you're to a degree on your own with the patient. So that takes time. I don't think there's a way to get around that other than putting in, extra breaks or factoring that in from time. But it's an expectation that you're going to be learning a lot. And that's really, can be quite draining and fatiguing.
And we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing here is we're all meeting in the same place and acknowledging that this is normal.
Yeah.
It's challenging. Not everyone takes this career path. And so where does it go? Why are we doing it? When you get to a certain point, things just get better. They just Absolutely. Do. They just get better. Things start to change. You start to develop. Okay, Tanya on the last episode talked about one pitfall for new grads is false confidence, early confidence, just knowing too much and just not being open enough. A more common problem I see is probably just the insecurity, the insecure overachiever. What's the phenomenon that everyone talks about where they're
imposter syndrome?
Thank you. Imposter syndrome. And so these things are real as well. And to me, there's a balance in between acknowledging weaknesses and gaps and learning needs and then having just enough confidence that the person trusts you. And so that changes as you develop knowledge and experience. Experience goes a long way. And it just gets better, particularly if you stay in, you can try some different areas, but if you stick to your area for a period of time, it becomes more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And these factors you're talking about, so the big days, they can get shorter. The thing about balance is, if you want to do something really extraordinary, it can't be balanced for a period of time. Your 20s are a time to be a bit imbalanced. Try some different things. Get yourself in trouble sometimes. But also with work, it's just you're getting yourself to the next level. But you don't want to do that for your whole – don't think in the first 5 years that it's going to be like this for your whole career. It can't be. You're not going to do 12 to 13-hour days for your whole career, I hope.
No,
you have other things.
Not the plan. But like you said, I'm doing that now to set myself up so I don't have to do that forever. Another big thing like private practice is usually there's expectations to work weekends. And that's once again pretty common. But you look at physios who have been out for even, 3 years, 5 years, like they don't work weekends anymore unless they want to. Like it can change. People, one day if you have kids, like, people who have kids aren't typically working, 7 till 7:30 at night. Like, they might start after school drop off and leave to pick up their kids. Like it's a big part of your life once you leave uni, but it's not your whole whole entire life.
I mean, that's probably the most important thing, probably the most important message from this conversation, that it can't be your whole life. And that flexibility that does come later on. You've got that, it has to be a bit imbalanced early on. You are going to work hard. You've got significant learning needs. And there are ways to make it, will reduce the friction of that, but also just give yourself a break. This is normal.
Yeah. Don't be scared to take your annual leave.
Yeah. Look after yourself. But there are things around the corner that you don't know about yet, and you can't predict them really. Susanna and I ended up working in the UK. A lot of physios used to do that. There was almost a rite of passage. It's probably, I don't know if it's more challenging now. It's different now. I know that. And we worked in different states in areas around Australia. Susanna's been on the podcast many times, sort of co-hosting and being a guest. She's worked with the Australian Paralympic team, Australian rules football with the girls, part of the Australian rules football, many different teams rather, and travel opportunities come up. Couldn't really predict any of that.
No, that's it.
And it's a happy surprise when it happens. You put in the work. The other thing we haven't talked about that really leads to a lot of those opportunities is just being open and be willing to talk to people. It's not just working in your area and talking to the person next to you. If you can make yourself go out to conferences, for example, professional development events, and tell people what you need. Don't just tell them what you're doing or ask them questions. People like being asked questions, but tell them what you need. This is what I'm really looking for. When you've got marketable skills as well, when you graduate, you have skills that I didn't have. I didn't have honours equivalents. I didn't have research embedded into research projects that you guys have when you graduate from a modern physio course. So I had to go do a master's and learn with a research component and learn that and get honours equivalents from that, and then work in a research centre, which then I needed to get my PhD because I wanted to do an academic career. So I had extra steps, and you guys can go in that direction a lot faster. But you don't find out any of that. Maybe you can find out on the Physio Foundation's podcast from some of our guests, but you don't find any of that out by, without going and talking to people and telling them what you need. And so as a new grad, you'll have skills in research, project management, conducting research. You have skills in evidence-based practice you've mentioned that we didn't used to have, not to the degree that you have. And you'll have skills in, a lot of the courses have business components in them as well, which will be really useful for you. Are you using some of that at the moment? Definitely,
yep.
And then if you're doing a job interview, don't be afraid to just be really clear about what you've got or what you're interested in. So I've got these skills. A willingness is a great word for job interviews. I have a willingness to be involved in, you might use a different word, but keen is a more casual word for that. I am interested, willing to be involved in these other things. And once you express interest in something, people come to you.
Yep, definitely.
Things can become much more exciting and interesting and variable, I think you said.
Yeah.
It keeps you on your toes, and
that's it.
All of this keeps you away from burnout, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. We're out of time. I'm going to run you late to your next patient in your clinic. I just realised the time is 10:30. Okay. So let's wrap it up there, Krissy. I feel like there's a follow-up episode to this. We've opened up so many different questions.
Yeah, can of worms.
Let's keep our conversation going, and I hope that these messages are finding you really well and you found this helpful if you're at that stage of your career. But Krissy, really grateful for your time and insights here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So to listeners, not too much to add. just share the episode. Krissy's going to share the episode in her network, which is really good. We talked about that before. You can just share it with somebody that you think will find this helpful. Do it for me, because that helps promote the message. So it's not just Krissy and I talking to ourselves, because we are interested in sharing positive messages throughout our profession. And that's my only call to action. So thanks again, Krissy.
No worries.
So until next time, this is Krissy and Luke wishing you all the very best with your studying, professional development and lifelong learning.